I am my mother's lawyer." The words echoed through the courtroom like thunder on a clear day. Judge Harrison paused mid-page, glancing over his glasses at the boy who dared to interrupt a $1 million custody case. David Thompson was only 9, but his voice cut through the formal silence with the precision of a scalpel. He stood beside his mother, Janet, whose eyes held a mixture of pride and terror. Across the room, Robert Wellington III, his biological father, nearly choked on his coffee. "I'm sorry, young man, but this is a legal hearing between adults," the judge said with forced patience. "I know, Your Honor," David replied, calm and unwavering. "But according to Article 12 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, ratified by the United States, I have the right to express my opinion on matters that affect me." He opened a scribbled school notebook. "This case affects me." Silence fell like a weight in the room. Robert Wellington, a Chicago real estate mogul in a suit worth more than Janet earned in 6 months, stared at his lawyers, unprepared for the unexpected challenge. No one had thought a child would stand up and quote international law in court. Janet had worked 60 hours a week as a nursing assistant, raising David alone. Robert had appeared in the boy's life exactly 4 times in 8 years, each visit marked by gifts and empty promises. And now, suddenly, he wanted full custody. "Your Honor," Robert's lead attorney, Dr. Mitchell, interjected, adjusting his tie. "This is highly irregular. The child has no legal capacity to—" David interrupted, his voice calm but piercing. "And if you really cared about my well-being, you would want to hear me rather than trying to silence me." Robert leaned toward his lawyer, whispering urgently, but David opened his notebook with methodical precision. "I have prepared a documented presentation on why I should remain with my mother, including evidence of the petitioner's true motives." His eyes met his father's, unwavering. Motives the court would soon find shocking. Dr. Mitchell regained composure quickly. "Your Honor, while we admire the child's creativity, this court deals with complex family law issues requiring legal representation." David snapped his notebook closed. "Then why didn't you provide one for me? For the last 8 months, no one thought it necessary to hear the opinion of the person most affected." Robert shifted in his chair, uneasy. David's calmness unnerved him. Weeks of school library visits, legal codes, children's rights manuals, and court precedents had been dismissed by Janet as simple curiosity. She never imagined her son was preparing for this moment. "Your Honor," Dr. Mitchell continued, "my client seeks custody out of genuine concern for the child's welfare. Ms. Thompson, while well-meaning, cannot provide the educational and social opportunities a gifted child deserves," David muttered under his breath, opening his notebook again. "Genuine concern? May I share some facts about this so-called genuine concern?" Judge Harrison leaned forward, intrigued. In 30 years on the bench, he had never seen a child so articulate, so fearless. "Mom," David whispered, "what lawyers? We can't afford them. Either I speak for us, or no one speaks." Robert finally found his voice. "David, son, I know this is confusing, but don't call me son." His words were cold, unsettling the room. David's response was measured. "In the last 9 years, you've shown up 4 times. 2 birthdays, always late, 1 Christmas, 20 minutes, and 1 for a press photo. The last visit, 6 months ago, lasted 15 minutes, long enough to criticize our furniture, complain about the medicine smell my mother brings home, and suggest I might have potential if I received a proper education. Interestingly, 2 weeks later, you filed for custody." Dr. Mitchell whispered urgently, but David continued. His voice carried the weight of careful preparation. "I have done research on my biological father. I discovered a recent lawsuit. He lost against business partners, a contested divorce filed by his 3rd wife, and a trust fund established by my late grandmother. This fund, $1.7 million, is specifically for me, Accessible only if I turn 18 or if my father obtains legal custody. Robert's face drained of color. How had a 9-year-old uncovered details even his lawyers didn't know? David adjusted his glasses and smiled. Not the innocent smile of a child, but the confident smile of someone holding all the cards. He continued, "Before we discuss inheritance, let's ask why a man who showed no genuine interest suddenly developed a paternal instinct." He's sweating now. His lawyers look lost. None of them anticipated a child who knew more about their client's financials than they did. Judge Harrison leaned forward, intrigued. "David, you mentioned evidence. What kind?" "For the past 3 months," David explained, "I have devoted every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon to the Central Public Library, researching public records, newspaper archives, corporate documents, and previous court cases. The head librarian, Ms. Rodriguez, taught me how to access legal databases. Everything I present is public and fully legal." Janet's eyes welled up. Her son had been quietly building a fortress of knowledge to protect them. David methodically detailed 3 major lawsuits, the financial schemes of Robert Wellington, and the creation of the trust fund, noting how his grandmother had set strict conditions to protect him. Each revelation made the room more silent, more tense. Then, almost casually, David added a line that many viewers would later comment on. "And this is why every child deserves a voice, even if adults refuse to listen. If this story is already gripping you, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. What David reveals will shock even the most seasoned courtroom observers." David opened a new section of his notebook with deliberate precision, turning pages as if revealing a treasure trove of truth. "Your Honor," he began, "over the last 18 months, Mr. Wellington has faced 3 major lawsuits. He lost a $2.3 million dispute with former partners at Wellington Industries. His third wife filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. And finally, my grandmother, Eleanor Wellington, established a $1.7 million trust fund specifically for me." Robert Wellington's face reddened with anger and fear. This was more than he had expected. How could a 9-year-old uncover details that even his lawyers hadn't? David adjusted his glasses again, a gesture that had become his trademark. "For 7 years, Mr. Wellington never mentioned my existence to her, never introduced me, never allowed her to know she had a grandson. When she discovered me, she set up the fund with one condition. It would be released for my care and education only if my father demonstrated genuine commitment by obtaining legal custody. If he never sought custody, the money would go directly to me at 18. The courtroom was silent, every adult absorbing the precision and weight of this revelation. Dr. Mitchell leaned over, whispering urgently to Robert, but the boy continued, unfazed. "This isn't coincidence," David continued. "My father ignored me for 9 years, missing his chance to access the inheritance through natural custody. Now desperate, he tries to force it late, thinking it would give him access. But he didn't anticipate one thing. His predatory financial career would be uncovered by a 9-year-old using only public resources." Robert Wellington's expensive suit seemed to shrink under the weight of his son's words. He tried to interject, but David was methodical, organized, unrelenting. He pulled a manila folder from his backpack and laid out 17 lawsuits over the past 5 years. Wellington Industries purchased properties from struggling families for far below market value, David explained, using insider knowledge from local banks. One of these families, the Santos family, worked 18-hour days in a bakery. An emergency hospitalization left them behind on their loan. Mr. Wellington exploited this, a pattern repeated countless times. The judge's expression grew serious. "Where did you get this information, David?" "Public court records, newspaper archives, incorporation documents, and state databases," David replied. "Mrs. Rodriguez, the head librarian, taught me that the truth is almost always publicly available. We just have to know where to look." Janet watched her son, astonished. For months, she had thought he was studying for a school project. She never imagined he was preparing to defend their lives in court. Dr. Mitchell tried another push. Even if these allegations were true, they don't change the fact that my client can provide better educational opportunities. David smiled, a calculated, unwavering smile. Regarding education, he said, flipping to a final section, I would like to share Mr. Wellington's true plans for me. Robert Wellington swallowed hard, sensing that the 9-year-old before him was no longer just his son, but a force of intelligence and strategy. David explained that during one of the 4 brief visits over 9 years, he had overheard his father on the phone plotting to send him to Riverside Military Academy in Colorado, a strict boarding school. The plan was cruelly strategic. The boy would be isolated, the inheritance funds would remain under Robert's control, and he could maintain the appearance of responsibility. Dr. Mitchell's face paled. Your Honor, private conversations cannot, David calmly interrupted. I can prove every word. From his backpack, he pulled a small digital recorder. Ms. Rodriguez taught me that documenting evidence is fundamental. This recording captures my father's intentions during our last visit 6 months ago. The room fell silent. Judge Harrison held the recorder, examining it carefully. David pressed play. The unmistakable voice of Robert Wellington filled the courtroom. As soon as I get legal custody, the boy goes straight to Riverside. $500 a month for boarding, the rest for education funds under my control. He won't even know about the money. Perfect solution. Janet covered her mouth in horror. The recording confirmed every suspicion, revealing the cruelty behind Robert's legal maneuvers. David continued. The second part of the recording shows his true thoughts. The boy is too smart for his own good. He asks questions, observes everything. Best to keep him out of the picture until he's 18. Robert Wellington exploded. This is a trap. A 9-year-old can't... David's voice cut like a blade. A 9-year-old can't be underestimated, can't be silenced, and can't expose the truth about a father who sees him as a problem to be solved. Judge Harrison turned off the tape recorder, looking directly at Robert Wellington. The combination of financial evidence, documented patterns of exploitation, and the recordings left no doubt. The court could see the father's true motives. David adjusted his glasses, opening the final page of his notebook. Your Honor, Riverside Military Academy has a terrible record. In the last 5 years, 3 students have committed suicide. The institution is under federal investigation for abuse of minors. My father planned to use my inheritance while pretending to care for me, isolating me from the person who truly loves me. Robert Wellington's face was a mask of fury and fear. David concluded calmly, a real father would never try to get rid of his own son to steal his money. The judge banged his gavel. Mr. Wellington, sit down immediately or be removed from the courtroom. David methodically closed his notebook, the calm in his posture matching the weight of his words. The room understood. A 9-year-old had just revealed the truth in a way adults could not ignore. The courtroom was silent, hanging on every word. David turned to the last section of his notebook, his small hands steady, precise. Your Honor, there is one final revelation, he said. I discovered the true purpose behind my grandmother's trust fund. She knew my father would never be a good parent. That fund was established to protect me, not reward him. She even hired private investigators to document his schemes over the years. All of it is on file with the fund administrator. Robert Wellington paled further, realizing he had been outmaneuvered completely. His plans, meticulously crafted, were now exposed by the determination of a 9-year-old. Judge Harrison banged his gavel, restoring order. Based on all the evidence presented, financial documents, recordings, and the plaintiff's demonstrated history, the custody request is categorically denied. Additionally, I order a full investigation into potential fraudulent use of the trust funds. Dr. Mitchell leaned toward Robert, whispering frantically, but the expression on the lawyer's face revealed that all hope was gone. Robert's empire, carefully built and maintained, was crumbling in real time before a courtroom of witnesses and a boy who refused to be silenced. David carefully packed away his materials, his calm, unwavering. Then, turning to the judge one last time, he said, "Your Honor, I did not do this out of anger or revenge. I did it because every child deserves a family that truly loves them, not one that sees them as a financial opportunity." As Robert Wellington was escorted from the courtroom under security, David allowed himself the smallest smile. In that moment, the courtroom witnessed more than just a victory in a custody battle. They saw the power of intelligence, preparation, and unconditional love overcome greed and corruption. 3 years passed since that historic day. David Thompson's story had gone viral. The recording of Robert Wellington, combined with the financial evidence, reached over 50 million views, inspiring legislative changes in 17 U.S. states. David, now 12, was invited to host America's most watched morning show. "David, how does it feel to be called the smartest kid in America?" the host asked. David, taller and wearing new glasses, smiled calmly. "I'd rather be called David, a child who learned that every voice matters, even when adults refuse to listen." The studio erupted in applause. Janet, backstage in her nursing supervisor uniform, watched with tears in her eyes. Her son had not only won in court, but had become a national symbol of hope for children everywhere. The hospital where she worked established the Janet Thompson program, providing scholarships for children of low-income employees. David spent the next 3 years traveling to schools in underserved communities, teaching children about their legal rights. His book, Every Child Has a Voice, became a bestseller, with proceeds funding free legal assistance for families in custody disputes. "David, tell me about the law library project you started," the host asked. David adjusted his glasses and explained, "After seeing how the public library saved me, I realized many other children face similar situations without knowing where to turn. We created small sections in 1-200 libraries with children's rights books in simple language and computers providing free access to legal resources." Janet wiped away a tear discreetly, proud of how her son transformed personal trauma into a nationwide movement. Meanwhile, Robert Wellington watched the program from a modest apartment in the suburbs. Gray-haired, clothed simply, he worked as a salesman in an electronics store, the only employment he could find after the court-ordered investigation destroyed his empire. His company, Wellington Industries, collapsed under the weight of exposure, leaving him penniless, divorced, and publicly disgraced. For Robert, the most painful truth was that David never publicly disparaged him. Whenever asked about his biological father, David's responses reflected maturity and compassion, underscoring the difference between a child with integrity and a man who valued money over love. "I hope he finds peace," David said in a recent interview, "and learns that true love cannot be bought or stolen. Holding a grudge doesn't help anyone. But setting boundaries is essential to protect those we love." Back in the studio, the host asked her final question. "David, what advice do you have for other children facing difficult family situations?" David paused, then looked directly into the camera. "First, you are not alone. Second, you have more power than you know. Third, the truth always finds a way to win, even when it seems impossible. Don't let anyone convince you that you're too small to make a difference. I was 9 when I changed my life and my mother's life forever. You can change yours too." 6 months later, David received a letter from Sophia Martinez, a 10-year-old in Los Angeles, who used the library project to help her immigrant grandmother avoid eviction. The letter concluded, "Thank you for teaching me that every child has a voice. I used mine and saved my family. Janet found David reading the letter, surrounded by hundreds of similar messages from children nationwide. How does it feel to know your courage inspired so many? She asked. David carefully folded Sophia's letter. I understand now, he said. If Robert Wellington had never tried to tear us apart, I would never have discovered that a child can change the world when adults stop underestimating them. Months turned into years, and David Thompson's life transformed in ways even he could not have predicted. Harvard University offered him a full scholarship to a special program in law and social justice, created specifically for students demonstrating exceptional social leadership before 16. Will you accept? Janet asked after David hung up the phone. I accept, he replied, smiling, but on one condition. I want to use my education to create a legal system that protects all children, not just those who are smart enough to protect themselves. Years later, at the age of 16, David became the youngest lawyer ever admitted to the bar. His first case challenged the public school system for failing to teach basic children's rights. He won, setting a precedent that mandated legal education for all students nationwide. Meanwhile, Robert Wellington never fully recovered. Living modestly, working jobs that barely paid his bills, he sometimes reflected on the extraordinary son he had lost to greed. In moments of honesty, he recognized that David had become the man he himself never could be. David Thompson's story proved that true strength does not come from wealth or connections, but from a combination of intelligence, courage, and unconditional love. A 9-year-old had defeated a corrupt system using only a public library, relentless determination, and the transformative power of truth. He learned that when you fight for what is right, the universe conspires in your favor. Robert Wellington learned that underestimating a determined child can be the most expensive mistake of a lifetime. Millions of children worldwide learned that their voices matter, that their rights are real, and that they are never too small to fight for justice. David's greatest revenge was not destroying his father. It was building a legacy that saved thousands of families from the injustices he had faced. Over the next few years, he visited schools, inspired children to understand their rights, and encouraged them to take action when adults ignored their voices. His book, Every Child Has a Voice, became a bestseller, funding free legal assistance to families in custody disputes. Letters poured in from children like Sophia Martinez, who used David's library project to save her family from eviction. Each message reinforced the impact of his work, showing that courage and knowledge, combined, could truly change lives. Janet watched her son with pride. 3 years earlier, she had feared for their future, unsure if David's courage would be enough. Now, she saw him transform personal trauma into a national movement, empowering children across the country. Even as Robert Wellington's empire crumbled, David never spoke ill of him publicly. I hope he finds peace, he said in interviews, and learns that true love cannot be bought or stolen. Holding grudges doesn't help anyone, but setting boundaries is essential to protect those we love. David's advice to other children facing family challenges became a mantra for many. You are not alone. You have more power than you know. The truth always finds a way to win, even when it seems impossible. Don't let anyone convince you that you're too small to make a difference. I was 9 when I changed my life and my mother's life forever. You can change yours too. Through the library project, legal workshops, and his public appearances, David Thompson cemented a legacy far beyond the courtroom. He showed the world that intelligence, preparation, and love can overcome wealth, power, and deceit. And in quiet moments, he reflected on the lesson he had learned as a 9-year-old. Courage isn't measured by size, age, or status. It is measured by the willingness to speak up, stand firm, and act for what is right. David Thompson's story remains a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of knowledge and proof that even the smallest voice can echo louder than the richest man's greed. His journey continues to inspire, reminding everyone that no obstacle is too great, no challenge too formidable, and no adult too powerful to silence a determined child. If this story of courage, intelligence, and determination inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories proving that the world's most unlikely heroes are often the ones everyone underestimates.